Hey guys, it's Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. It's time to unbox this Makita brushless trimmer, line trimmer, whippersnipper, whatever you want to call it. Last year I bought a big pack of Makita tools and gradually I'm going through them, and as I'm unboxing them for my use, I'll do a review for you guys. I'm not sponsored by Makita or anything like that. There's no benefits to me other than just sharing what I find with you guys. Let's unbox it. Now let's see what we get in the box. It's a brushless 18 volt line trimmer model DUR189RM. I think the RM means you get a battery and a charger with it. Well, at least that's what the packet says. I kind of didn't need that. I ended up with about 6 batteries when I bought the kit. But I can always sell the ones I don't need. So we'll unbox it. We'll see what's involved in assembling it. There will be some assembly required. We'll see what we get in the box. We'll run it through its paces. It has a few different features and it looks pretty well packaged. And I like that Makita don't use expanded polystyrene or lots of plastic. There's just recyclable cardboard. So that's a win from me. There's our battery, and it's a 4 amp hour battery. All my other batteries are actually 5 amp hour. I believe you can get around about 3/4 an hour out of one of these, so perhaps a 5 would give me an hour. I assume they're interchangeable, they should be. And a charger for the battery. So we have a guard to go around the bottom of the trimmer. Now the motor is actually in the bottom of the trimmer rather than up the top. So the weight of the battery is up the top, the weight of the motor is down the bottom. It's actually extremely light as it is. Once we've got the head and the guard on and the battery, it should be still pretty well balanced. So we'll check that out. There's a bag with some other goodies in here. We have a D handle which is adjustable. A little plate, I think that goes under the cutting head. The head itself, the trimmer head. There's a harness, but given that it's so light, we probably won't even use the harness. And an Allen key. I think there's another Allen key in here too. There's 2 different size Allen keys. We have some instructions and a brochure on other Makita products. So that's all that's in the box. Let's get the cardboard out of the road and start assembling. Okay, in this plastic bag we have a wire guard and we have a plastic shield, 2 halves of that, which obviously mount around the cutting head or the trimming head. So we will deal with this in a second. The other accessory we have to assemble is the handle, which is just simply a large thumb screw here and a bolt. And we've got to take that out, slip it over the top of the tube, and it will be adjustable up and down to whatever comfort level you require. So it just clips on there, the bolt goes back through, and the head of the bolt locks in the plastic, so you don't have to hold it with a spanner, and you screw up the knob here. So that's pretty easy to put on and adjust. Okay, to fit the guard to the head, it just fits over the moulding, and the smaller part actually has locating pins. If you can see, there's a plastic pin there and one there, and they just cover the screw holes and it locates it in the right position. So we can put the back one back on and drop that one in the front there, and everything lines up really easily just to do up the bolts with the larger Allen key. Now this isn't something you'll need to take off once it's assembled. It's pretty well right for life and it locates very easily. So once they're done up firmly, we can turn it over or relocate the camera and we'll fit the head. The head looks like it just screws straight on. There's a metal shield here. But before we put that on, they give you a hole through here to put, I think it's the smaller Allen key. The smaller Allen key goes in here and actually locks into the drive shaft, the collar. There's a little, that's it. and that allows you to hold that firm. I'll put the cover on, and then we can do up the head. So the Allen key allows you to hold the drive shaft while you do up the head and tighten it, and likewise if you need to remove the head to put more trimmer cord in or anything like that, you just use that small Allen key to locate that. There we go, that's all assembled. Pretty easy. The only thing we've got to do at the end here is there's some paper over the little cutter blade. Given that it is a cutter blade, let's be careful of our fingers. I think it's actually tape. Probably wouldn't matter if you forget to remove this anyway, because it will fall off eventually. And the idea of this blade is to trim the... Geez, it's quite sticky. It's to trim the cord back to length. So these have a bump feed head on them. We're still in shot there. So when you're actually using this trimmer, you can bump it on the ground, and that will allow a little bit more cord to automatically feed out. And this blade here will just cut it back to size. It'll make a bit of a clatter and a real noise for the first half a second, but it stops the cord wearing away your plastic guard here. There, sorry, we're out of shot again. With the head assembled, all we have to do is just stretch this just wire guard over the two holes there, and that its purpose is really just to give you a guide to trim up to. So if you're trimming around the base of a tree, this can bump against the tree and you won't actually ring bark it with the cord. A lot of people don't even use this, but it's there if you need it, and I can see it would be a good idea if you're trimming up against a small tree and you didn't want to sort of basically cut all the bark off it. It will bend up and sit back out of the road, which is probably where I'll leave it most of the time, but it's handy to have. So that finishes the assembly. Okay, before we go out and put it through its paces, there's another adjustment. You have the handle, the D handle, which I've loosened off a little bit again, so it can slide. Well, it's maybe not quite loose enough. It can slide up and down the shaft until whatever suits however long your arms are. But also the actual shaft itself is telescopic. So there's a collar here which you can loosen off, and the shaft itself will extend the length or reduce the length of the entire machine. So between those two options, I'm sure you can get it comfortable to use. And the weight itself, as I said, is we've still got to put the battery on it, but the head certainly hasn't added much weight to it. So it's going to be quite comfortable to use. The controls look pretty simple. I have not started it up yet, so I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I've seen a few other reviews and it looks pretty easy. You have a safety thing on the top here so that when you put your hand down, your palm actually presses it down so you can use the trigger, which is underneath. You don't want to bump the trigger and have it burst into life when you're not ready for it, so much the same as most chainsaws and everything have. So we have a power switch which you press and hold for a little bit and it comes on. There's 3 speed settings, so we can cycle through those. It's on the slowest, then there's a medium, then there's a fastest, and if you press it again, there's an auto function which varies the power according to how much is needed. So if that works well, that's probably the only setting I'll actually use. I don't imagine many people just trimming their lawns on the turtle setting, the lowest setting, unless I guess you've got very, very fine grass and there's not much load. It would be a bit quieter. But in general, these electric motors are going to be a lot quieter than the petrol anyway. Medium would probably never get used. I would imagine most people are just going to use it flat out. Although it's probably a good idea to have settings here, because if you are doing very light grass, you don't have any ability to vary the speed from the trigger. Whereas on a standard petrol trimmer, you can sort of accelerate and deaccelerate and hold it at a fast idle, all from the trigger. On an electric machine, you don't have an option. It's either on or off. So I guess, you know, it'll depend on what you get used to. At least it's easier to switch between them. And I think I can actually do it while it's running. So let's fire it up for the very first time. That's very quiet, and it does sound like an electric motor, which I suppose you would expect. So I'll hold it on and I'll cycle through the speeds. And that's now on auto, and because there's no load, it's running low. That'll be interesting to test out. So that sounds good. There's very little vibration through the handle. It all sounds pretty smooth and powerful. It'll be interesting to see how it can handle the thicker grass. There is a reversing function here, which apparently spins the head the other way. I've never seen that before on a trimmer. It may help if you've wrapped up some reeds, or if you've been trimming some grassy type plants in the garden and some of them have wrapped around the head. I don't know. I probably won't have a use for that. Hopefully when you engage reverse, it doesn't actually undo the head. So anyway, it's an interesting feature. So there we go. That's the controls. I guess we should go and give it a try out. Okay, that was on the slowest setting, and that's good. One thing I noticed is that it doesn't flick bark chips and things way around the yard. When you're on the slowest setting, you do have some nice control, and it seemed to have plenty of power for this light couch grass. Let's go to the fastest setting now. That worked great. And does it have a quick stop function? Oh, there you go. It has a bit of a brake when it gets a bit slower. I've now put it on auto. Let's see if we can load it up enough and notice a change in speed. Oh, definitely. I do like that. It actually accelerated when it needed to. So yes, the auto function I think I'll definitely use. Let's do a bit of edge trimming. Probably this side, I should have the best vision. Too easy, that's good. Okay, I don't think you quite saw that, but twice the actual head has unscrewed itself and fallen off. And I did notice someone else write that in a review when I was doing a bit of research on this. I think it's because the braking mechanism, when the brake engages, all the force or the momentum of the head is actually working towards unscrewing it. Whereas when you're actually using the thing, it can't possibly come undone. But when you turn it off or when you release the trigger, it slows down and then the brake engages. Sometimes the momentum of the head can actually undo it. The first time it happened, I thought, oh, that's not a problem. I'll just make it a bit tighter. I didn't go super tight, but clearly you need to have it pretty tight to stop this happening. I don't know that the brake is actually necessary. You can easily just bump it on the grass to stop it. But anyway, minor problem. I'll make sure I tighten it up. I guess I could also put a bit of Teflon tape on the thread. But so edging was a success, although admittedly it wasn't very heavy going. It got a bit tougher in this corner as you saw, but it handled it fine. I think the secret with this machine, and I'll talk about this when I do a bit of a conclusion, is don't ask it to do anything that is beyond it. If you keep within normal household domestic use and not tackling big jungles, it performs really well. I've just done of our front lawn, and it's done. I didn't do this bit over here. Let me show you how thick it was. I haven't trimmed it for quite some time, so you can see it was quite high, and I've taken it right back, and the machine handled it with ease. So on this nice fine couch grass. Even though it's a little bit sort of thick here, it did a good job. If you've got buffalo or really thick, heavy, reedy type grass, or you're trying to trim back some wild sort of grass out the back paddock, go and buy yourself a brush cutter. This is a domestic trimmer, and for what it's made for, it works really well. Now, one thing I saw some people ask about in the reviews was, they say, I've got a small lawn, can I buy one of these and use it to save me buying a lawnmower? Well, yes, if it's small and if it's light grass, it should work quite well. Just to trim it down. You won't get a really neat flat cut, but it will certainly maintain a small lawn. If you've got a big lawn, it's going to be very hard on your arms. And if you've got thick, heavy grass, it's not going to be suitable. So they're not designed as a lawnmower, but if you've got a little area, it would probably work okay. Okay, back in the workshop now. We'll have a look at the line head in a minute and see what's involved in replacing the cord. The battery, I actually used one of my 5 amp hour batteries because I had some charged, and the 4 amp hour one that was in the kit was flat, and I've since charged it up. It didn't take very long to charge. So with the fuel gauge on my 5 amp hour, I've still got 3/4 of a battery, and I did all that big lawn at the front of the house and a section at the back. So it was fairly light going, but that's going to be more than ample for me. I'm not going to be worried about that. It wouldn't have been a problem if I had to replace the battery halfway through. I've decided I'm not even going to keep this one or the charger, because I have a double charger for all my tools. All the batteries are interchangeable, of course. I'm going to sell that through the shop. I did a quick check online, and through some of the big hardware chains in Australia, they were like $200 and something for the set. I think the batteries are about 160. I'm going to sell the pair in my shop for 150 bucks, brand new. I'll get some money back. I don't need them sitting around here on the off chance that I'm going to need 6 batteries on one day or something ridiculous like that. And as I said, I've already got a double charger, so probably you could buy this unit. I think it's a Z after it instead of an RM. DUR189RM, I think, is just the skin. That's probably what I should have got. But then again, I think when I bought the kit I bought 10 Makita products, and I think they threw this one in. So there's some cash back for me. Now, what have I got to report? Well, one other thing that I've discovered, that after you have it on for a while, I've taken the battery off, that's why. After it's idle for a while and not being used, it actually does turn off, so that's not a bad feature. I like the controls. I found that I actually didn't use the auto setting very much. I just prefer to run it flat out, because the blades, the trimmer line actually sweeps the grass away, and it clears it away. And if you're using the auto function, when you're not actually doing the heavy cutting, it doesn't actually sweep the grass away. So I like to have it just going as fast as it can. It worked fine. The auto function does work though, and then there might be situations where it's useful. I didn't use the reverse, but then with the grass I'm doing, I won't need that. But yeah, easy controls to use. I didn't have to adjust anything. It was actually quite comfortable. It's not heavy, as I said, so it's not fatiguing to use at all. Let's have a look at the trimmer head itself. And all that work I just did with it, I didn't even bump feed it once. I'm not really a fan of the bump feeds anyway, because I've seen too many of them wear out because people rub them on the ground all the time. That cord is pretty well as I started, except you see about 1 inch. Hang on, let's adjust the camera. There's about 1 inch here, so I did let a little bit more out, and all I did was manually. I just push the button and pull the cord out a bit more, do it manually. And if it's a little long, the blade will trim it the first time you start it. I probably won't even bother bumping it. I think the bump would work fine, but I find it just as easy to, because you don't have to stop and start it like a petrol one. You just release the trigger, turn it upside down, push the button, pull a bit more out, release the button, and then you've got heaps more length again. It's less wear and tear on all the head. So that's all I'm going to do. And as I said, I only had to do it once anyway to do my whole yard. So there, pretty easy. Now, as far as replacing the cord goes, it's pretty straightforward. You don't have to take it off the machine. You've got a button each side, and if you push those in, the actual thingo will come off. The spring is firmly attached, so you won't find that bouncing under the workbench somewhere, never to be seen again. One thing I do like is that instead of just an eyelet, it has a slot right through, so you can actually remove the coil here quite easily. That's what they put on from new, and it seems to be a pretty good cord. It didn't break once for me. It's pretty easy when it runs out to rethread it. You just loop it around the little section in the middle. They both have to wind the same way, and once you get them wound up like that is now, they give you little notches. Where's the notch? There's one there. Little notches to put it through, and there'll be one around this side. So you put that through the notch like that. The other one's through the other notch. Then you just, whoops, we've got a bit of dust in here. So you slide that over the top, and then it's as easy as just releasing it out of the notch, and it's straight up through where the string actually runs. Some of the older models I used to work on had just an eyelet, and you had to kind of poke it in there and feed it through. This is just clicks up there like that. We can put it back on, and it goes over those locators, and it'll click down into position, and there we go, we're done. Now of course we've got way too much now. Rather than start it up and let it clatter onto the blade, I'll just chop it with some side cutters to the right length. And we're right to go again. So that's pretty easy. Not a lot to go wrong with it, and I think the head will last for a long time if you don't bump it. Eventually these metal eyelet things will wear out. It's amazing how the nylon wears through metal. I assume they're available as a replacement part. Would be pretty easy to do. An entire head probably wouldn't be that expensive. So there we go. That's the workings of it, and I quite like this machine. So there we go, a review on a Makita line trimmer. I'm pretty happy with this one. It's going to suit my needs absolutely perfectly. I don't have to mix up two-stroke fuel anymore. Well, I do for a chainsaw, but I use this much more often. This is convenient just to grab off the wall, grab a battery, go and do the job. No cords to unroll. As I said, no fuel to mix up. And something I did like is that there's no hot, noisy electric petrol motor right next to you with smoke, with fumes, with exhaust smells, getting hot under your elbow with the exhaust itself. It's very convenient, and the electric motor's down the end, so it's very quiet, low vibration. It's a lot of pluses. I really like it. I'm going to give it 9.5 prickly thistles out of 10. A great unit for my gardening kit. I don't like spending too much time in the garden. This will help keep my place nice and neat. Thanks for watching, guys. I did mention earlier, if you've got heavier stuff to do, don't ask too much of this. It's a garden trimmer. It's a battery one. They're not meant to cut down jungles, but if you use it for what it's made for, you'll be very happy with it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll unbox another Makita product when I get to it. Again, I'm not a review channel, but when I unbox something, I'll share what I find with you guys. Catch you in the next video. Bye for now.